Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
This is at Humboldt Casino in San Diego.
Oh, the one with the J, right? Yeah, that was I think that might be one of the first card room that's opened up in Southern California, right? Oceans is not open yet? Is
It
that
is.
right? Oh, it is. Oceans is open.
I'm not sure on that one, but yeah, this is one of the first ones that's
Okay.
opened up.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, so I saw some people rumbling about that. None of the in LA have opened up yet, but all right. So Jamal, JMUL in San Diego, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And it's a 2-5 no limit,
Okay.
and I have 1,400 effective.
So 2-5 no limit, 1,400 effective. Okay.
Okay. And villain, it has about 1,000 effective
Okay.
in this case.
Mhm.
So villain is under the gun, and he opens to 15, and then I am under the gun +1. The villain is a pretty loose, aggressive player, but he is still new around the table, so I'm a little unsure
Okay.
about his image. But I have black pocket sixes.
Okay.
Okay, and I just call. I flat call.
Okay.
And then it folds around to the cutoff, who also calls.
So three ways.
Yes, 3 ways to a flop.
Okay.
And the flop comes Queen 8-6 rainbow.
So Queen 8-6 rainbow. So
Yes.
you have bottom set, similar to last call
Yes.
here. Okay.
Yes, I do. So I feel pretty good about it. The board looks good. I feel like it should be good here a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
So the under the gun checks. I check to see if maybe the cutoff wants some action. The cutoff bet's 25.
All right. So
And
let me just
then-
ask you real quick. Normally I'm betting here. I mean, the good thing about having bottom set on a board like this is that you actually unblock the other pairs, right? The people can call with. There's a fair amount of straight draws out here. Jack 10, 9, 10, which is double gutted. Yes, it's a rainbow board. And also the other thing too is that I find it that it would be pretty rare if you were to bet and the cutoff were to fold, that the under the gun guy is just going to necessarily give up what he has. Now, he probably should have some give ups. Like, for example, if he had raised with ace 5 and he has no backdoor, ace 4. I mean, there are definitely some misses, but to check there would just, you'd have to have a purpose where he would start bluffing those hands later on. And I don't know. I mean, I would just tend to bet off a little bit on the smaller side, more often than not here.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So the cutoff he bets out 25.
Yep.
The under the gun calls,
Okay.
and then I click it back to 100.
I don't know if that's necessarily a click back, but click back usually is like a mid raise.
yeah.
Right. So you check.
Right,
So cutoff bet's 25. Queen 8-6. You've got pocket sixes. Cutoff bet's 25. Under the gun calls, and now you make it 100. I mean, I think that's obviously I'd like to try to get some more money in the pot. The problem with just overcalling is that, and a lot of people don't quite get this, is that if you just overcall here, the cutoff is going to be checking back on the turn with a lot of hands, especially all his draws. He's most likely not going to be betting again against two people against his draws. And some people are going to get scared because if you put yourself in the cutoff spot, let's say that you were betting off here with Queen Jack and you were in the cutoff spot, then the pre-flop raiser called and the guy in the middle called, you might get a little bit concerned about what's going on. Is somebody sandbagging, something like that? So I would prefer to take the betting lead away from the in-position player and build the pot up. Your sizing is fine. I might take a smaller exploitable size of like 60 to 75, and that is definitely exploitable. And the reason why it's exploitable is because you'd probably almost never make that raise size, right, with a bluff. But we're trying to maximize value here, like in a live game. Just
Okay, so
because,
to get called by the other.
yeah, just because you
Okay,
wouldn't ever make this like a smaller raise size as a bluff, like as a semi bluff with like 9-10, or it would just be very, very hard for you to have a check raise from the middle here, raising small, which would give your opponents a good price with no fold equity. It does that just because that's the truth. It doesn't mean that actually making that play doesn't yield the highest EV in this particular scenario. But okay, so you check raise to 100.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I do. Yes. The cutoff who bet 25, he folds, and then the under the gun calls again.
Oh, that's interesting. So the under the gun checks, calls the initial bet, and now calls your check raise to 100.
Right.
That's
so
very
I'm
that's
feeling a
very
little weird
interesting.
about it. Yeah. He's sort of a sneaky player based off of like another hand, but so I'm pretty unsure of what he has at some point. Maybe it's like straight draws, 9, 10, 10 jack, hands like that, I think.
Well, actually, you know what I would say is that, and especially if you're new to live poker, most of the time at this level, players do not put over pairs into checking ranges here, which, they can become transparent. Not always, but it would be surprising to me if he had over pairs like aces, kings. He could have a queen here and he's just checking. I would tend to think that if he was raising with some of those hands, like a 9-10 suited, and then it flopped double gutted, that he would be basically c-betting. So I'm not super concerned that much about draws here. It just seems like maybe he's got, like a queen X, or possibly it's just one of those rare scenarios where he has an overpair, unless he's really, really bad and he's calling with like jacks or tens to your check raise, which seems a little bit unlikely. But yeah. So the pot's 270, it looks like, going to the turn.
Yes. Then the turn comes 4, offsuit 4. So that completes the rainbow.
Okay.
Yes.
So queen 8-6 turns a 4. Some people are saying, could he have pocket queens? Sure, he could have pocket queens too. He could be sandbagging something, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was kind of worried about, was just a bigger set. Honestly, I thought maybe this guy might have been just like slow playing a bigger set. So the under the gun checks, and then I actually decided to check it back and maybe reevaluate on the river and see kind of what he does. So yeah, he checks, I check it back, and the flop comes.
So let's just hold on here for a second. I'll just go through this turn thought process. So looks to me like, he's got about 850 left in his stack, because you guys put in about more 860. He started with 1K, so pot's 270. He's got 860 left. He checks to you on the turn. Turn's a 4. Yes, it brings in 5-7, but usually that's not going to be represented in early position ranges, even in live poker. And I just think that, yeah, of course, he could sometimes have, a big hand, and you could be coolered in a spot like this. But I'm pretty much never folding a set on a dry board like this against the preflop raiser at 1K effective at 2.5. I would continue to think that the large portion of his range actually would be like a queen X or an overpair that he was just saying, oh, I'm going to check this because I learned that, this board is reflected as a check 100 from a solver or some bullshit like that, which, a lot of people sort of meld theory into their game, into live play, which is fine, but they don't realize that they're actually misapplying scenarios, because, if you were to put optimal ranges into a solver, optimal preflop ranges, those ranges don't include like the cutoff, like calling with like queen jack offsuit or queen 10 offsuit, like it is in live poker, which would mean that, it would not be a check from upfront from this guy with overpairs, things like that. You'd be betting to get value. So I would just continue to bet. I mean, if you're checking this back because you want to get an extra street and you don't think that you can get 3 streets and you're trying to play it tricky, yeah, okay, I can get on board, but I'm not really scared of anything per se. So it goes check,
and looking
check.
back, I probably should have bet here. There should be a betting spot. And then the flop comes a 2.
The river's a 2?
I don't think it does too much, yeah.
Okay, so the board is queen 8-6, 4 deuce. Under the gun had raised to 15. Hero calls with 6-6, cutoff calls. Queen 8-6, check. Hero checks, cutoff 25. Under the gun calls, hero raises to 100, cutoff folds, under the gun calls, turns a 4, queen 8 6 4, check check, river's a deuce. Okay.
Yes. And then the under the gun leads out for 365.
Well, it's kind of funny because I was going to say, now that you've checked back the turn, if the under the gun comes and bets out, what looks to be a value bet sizing, like he says he comes out and bets like half pot or something like that, or even half to 2/3, I would think that you'd raise at the end and he'd be betting off with a queen or an overpair. Against an over bet sizing here now,
Right.
when he bets
so
365.
Totally yes. Yeah. And my first reaction was that it looked like he was maybe trying to make up for lost value on the turn.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that was kind of going through my head at the time. But yeah, he bets 365. So I felt like for some reason my hand was going to ended up making a call after tanking for a couple minutes.
Okay, hold on one second. So let me just go. So you ended up calling, right? Is that right? You
Yes.
flat called? All right. So before you give the results, let me just look back here. And this is what my thought process would be here. And again, you can sometimes out-level yourself, and sometimes I'll out-level myself too. But what we're concerned about here, right, is pocket queens and pocket eights. And I'm actually more concerned about pocket eights, and I'll tell you why. And then I'll tell you whether or not I would raise here at the end on the river. The reason why I don't feel like this line is consistent with queen-queen is that if you were to put yourself in your opponent's position, and again, this is where the out-leveling comes from, after you basically, I guess you did check raise the flop and then check back turn, but we're blocking all of the queens here if we have 3 queens. So why would we take an overbet sizing here of 365 when it's unlikely that you have a queen? It is a little bit odd because you did check raise the flop. It kind of puts a little bit of a quirk into it. But if I'm doing the math out here, if you make the call, so he bets 365 into 270. If you make the call 730, the pot's like 1,000 actually, right? It's exactly 1,000 because it's 730. If you call the pot's 1,000 and he only has, let's see here, 465, he only has like 500 left around. So this is a situation where I call, like, where I don't know if this term was made up before, but sometimes I'll throw out the term reverse pot odds, where the opponent has so little chips behind in relation to the pot, he's going to be getting such a good price that he's going to call anyways. This is close, because if you shove, the pot's 1,500, 500 for him to call, maybe you get into a situation where a guy is like, well, I overbet the river and now this guy's jamming on me. How can I call? Even though it's a very strange hand because you check back on the turn, it usually comes into play when the opponent even has less money behind. Like, say the guy bet 365 and he only started the river with like 500 and he had 135 left. Well, he's calling 100% of the time. So there is no bet fold button really here. So, bet fold for value. So I would probably shove. This one's close. I still think I might lean towards shoving. You're only losing to queen, and 8-8. I can get on board with a call, and I just don't think that I would play the hand this way. Obviously, it's never a fold, but I actually think it's very close between a shove and a call, and I very well might shove here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, looking back on it now.
So what was the result?
Absolutely. I called, and the villain shows 7-5 suited.
7-5 suited for the nuts. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I felt good about only calling there. Then, obviously, a shove came through my mind, but
yeah,
shove was 7-5.
And people were saying, well, worse can't call. Yeah, but the hand is played in such a strange manner.
Right.
It's played in such a strange manner because you check back the turn. It's not like you bet the flop, bet the turn, and then suddenly your opponent leads into you on the river and you jam. You checked back the turn. So it would be it's a very confusing hand from your opponent's perspective too, if you were to jam that river. That's interesting. So he check calls with 7-5. You check it back and then he overbets the river. It makes more sense than him blocking basically a queen, right? But Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. Thanks for the call.
If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.